Alrighty, let's take a look at how we're going to do this particular 5-minute code. So let's do a quick run through of the starter code that I have. So a couple things to note is I have some variables I have created, and in addition to that, I'm also utilizing a function for this particular 5-minute code, meaning down below we're not going to change and make any modifications down there. And coming up here, just like in the previous lab, we're going to be starting out by using a function, and again everything needs to be indented accordingly for it to work. So let's take a look at the instructions for part 1. So we need to prompt the user for the following information of first name, last name, and age, and then print out the output. So the output should look something along this line. So if we take a look at the code here, I have things outlined where we're going to have our 3 input statements on these particular lines, and then we're going to basically print out the greeting. So our first line, we'll type in something along this line, and remember we need to have that indentation, otherwise we'll get an error. So we're prompting the first name, we'll prompt the user for the second name, or the last name, and then we're going to prompt the user for their age then. And then here is the age. Oop, wrong place here, want it down here. We're prompting the user for the age. Let me adjust this real quick so we have some nice spacing. And then what we're going to do is create a greeting. So I'm going to create something a little bit fancier for my output for the greeting, and I'll use something like this. So here I have a tilde with a couple new lines, my hello statement with their first name, last name, the age, and then I'm going to reply back that the computer's name. So going back up to here, that's just what it's going to substitute. So now let's go back and take a look at the run. Click it up here. Just like before, we'll move that off to the side, and let's take a look at the code. So we'll type in Fred Flintstone. If I could type today. And there you go. So, hello, Fred Flintstone. You are 35 years old. My name is Stan. So it outputted what it needed to. So this was fairly easy for that part. So that was part 1. Let's take a look at what is in store for part 2. So part 2 instructions, we're going to create a print statement to display once again, the data types of the input variables, and the output should look something along like this. So let's take a look at the data types and what we need to type in there. And scroll down to part 2. Let's get rid of some extra spaces here. So for part 2, what we're going to do is create this particular code here. So in a moment we'll see what this fancy print statement does. Probably a hint from the previous one, I'm changing some colors around and displaying a header of what that's being done and a couple of equal signs out there. And from that point we got this statement here. The data type for the first name is, the data type for the last name, and then data type for age is that. So let's take a look at what happens when we run the code. Let's go back to our run here. Let me clear the screen and let's start over. Run. So we'll do Fred Flintstone 35. So that was part 1. Part 2, and a couple things to notice, that everything is going to be of class string. Because if you remember from the introduction to this topic, by default it's going to save things as a string. So now let's take a look at part 3. So we're going to create the code to determine what year the user was born. So we're going to have a variable of current year to subtract the age and display that portion. You were born in the year, and then have a great day. So when we go to our part 3, let's get rid of some extra spaces here. And this will look something like this. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new variable. I'm subtracting the current year, which I have identified up in my variable section there. And I'm subtracting age from it, and then I'm prompting you were born in the year, etc. And then our final print statement of having a great day. So let's go ahead and run the code again. And actually, you know what? Let me Control C out of this, clear the screen, and run it one more time. Alrighty, so we got Fred Flintstone 35. And let's see. Oh, and we got an error. So if we look at what is in store here, so basically it's this part, line 61. It's saying that the current year supported operand needs to be int, but we have an str. So if we look at line 61, again, we're subtracting our values. There's nothing wrong with the formula over here. The problem is that when we captured the age prompt up here, this again is saving it by default as a string. So we don't want it as a string, so we need to update this. And we want to say that this is going to be now an integer, open paren, close paren. That should take care of that. Let's go back to our code and clear the screen and come back here and run it. So Fred Flintstone 35, and there we go. So part 3 works. And if you notice the syntax, everything ended up working. We had the correct component right there. Alrighty, now let's take a look at the challenge code. So if you take a challenge code here, we're looking at creating a default. So what it's saying that if your age default is 21 if no value is entered. So if there's nothing entered, user forgets or just hits enter, there'll be a default value. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to make a slight modification to the capture of the data of the input statement. And that's going to basically be over here. So let's take a look at our input. So for age, as of right now here, what we're going to do is we're going to make a modification to this, and what we're going to do is we'll just simply do it this way and make sure this is aligned correctly. So if we take a look at the code a little bit closer here, so what I end up doing is this particular component here, we got the open bracket or open parentheses, close parentheses here, and what we're doing is adding this additional statement right there, or 21. So if there's nothing entered, and we basically put that in there, and it will work. So let's go ahead and run our code, and move this over here. So let's go ahead and run our code. I'm going to move that over here. So we got Fred Flintstone, and we're going to enter, basically hit enter. So you could see that at this point we didn't enter a value over here. It automatically took the default value of 21 and basically typed that in and outputting the components there. And that is it.